Emmett Fox, in his book, Sermon on the Mount, page 147, says, "The great prayer, the Lord's Prayer, is a compact formula for the development of the soul. It is designed with the utmost care for the specific purpose, so that those who use it with understanding will experience a real change of soul. The only progress that matters is the change of soul. The mere acquisition of fresh knowledge received intellectually makes no change in the soul. The Lord's Prayer is especially designed to bring this change of the soul about." Please join me now as we enthusiastically speak these words of affirmation on the screen. I am dedicated to living my life as an instrument of agape love, and so I pray. My prayers of love deepen my relationship with the divine, which opens me to a greater flow of grace, light, spiritual wisdom, and discernment that is a blessing to us all. That was very enthusiastic. Good job, everybody. So December is really a holy season, isn't it? It is a time when many different spiritual traditions have festivities. Zoroastrian, Buddhist, Jewish, Christian, and also the Islamic faith. And if you really look at all of these different faiths, as Candace, I think you could see from what she pointed out with Buddhism, that really there are basic truths that underlie all of these traditions when you go to the mystical level, which is the very deep level which is about the change of the soul. And so how perfect this month to focus on a prayer by a spiritual master, a great teacher, an illuminated being, Jesus the Christ. And we talked last week a bit about what this idea of the Christ means, which is a principle that's available to each and every one of us. It is really our core essence. And when we bring that forth into full radiance and expression in this life, then we are demonstrating the Christ presence. Or in Buddhism, it would be called being the Buddha, expressing the Buddha. Being the presence of Krishna in the Hindu faith, and self-realization, enlightenment. There are a lot of different terms for this particular state of being, which is the fully orbed state of the fully realized divine human. So that's what we're talking about here, and that's what Jesus was trying to get across, just as Buddha was, that there is a path that leads to that greater expression of our divinity. So the Lord's Prayer was something designed and formulated by Jesus, particularly for his disciples, and then for others, but for his disciples in particular, to help them deepen into their truth and their reality. So each week, what I'm offering you then is a different interpretation that goes back to the original Aramaic version, Aramaic being where it all originated to begin with. That was the language that Jesus spoke back in the day when he was on the planet. So as we go back and look at the original words, what we've learned is that there are many levels in the Aramaic language, actually in the Hebrew language and in the Greek language and in the Arabic language. There are many layers of meaning. And so we want to go to the deepest level of those different layers. So today, the interpretation that I'm drawing, the translation I'm drawing from, is actually based on a book by a man by the name of, I'm sorry, I have not memorized, Neil Douglas Klotz. And his book is called Prayers of the Cosmos. There it is. Prayers of the Cosmos, Meditations on the Aramaic Words of Jesus.
And so the interesting thing about what is offered in this book is that he takes the prayer line by line, talks about the original, or not the original, but the translation that we're familiar, many of us are familiar with, that are in the Bible, and then all of the different layers of meaning that are actually in the Aramaic words themselves. So he's a student of the Aramaic language. So here is the interpretation. This is actually one of his many interpretations, but here's one that I pulled from what he had. And it goes like this. O birther, father, mother of the cosmos, focus your light within us and make it useful. So instead of our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, it is, O birther, father, mother of the cosmos. Focus your light within us. Make it useful. So remember, when people interpret these things, they're going to interpret it through the lens of their spiritual traditions. I mean, that's what happens. So what this man, Neil Donald Klotz, did, as well as what others have done who've gone back and looked at that original Aramaic tradition, is trying to help us see that the deeper meanings of these words, and to give ourselves a broader perspective on it. So we're not just saying a prayer like this by rote, but that we have we actually meditate on it and have a sense of what that means for us, so that we have that shifting and changing and opening up of the truth of who we are, those shifts in consciousness that allow us to be that presence of divine oneness and wholeness. So that was the first line. So, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. We already did it. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Let's listen to this interpretation. Create your reign of unity now through our fiery hearts and willing hands. Isn't that beautiful? Create your reign of unity now through our fiery hearts and willing hands. So, thy kingdom come. And then it goes on to say, help us love beyond our ideals and help us sprout acts of compassion for all creatures. So that's still inherent in all those words that relate to that particular phrase. And then, give us this day our daily bread. Translate as, grant what we need each day in bread and insight. So it's food for the mind or the soul, as well as food for the body. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight, which are subsistence for the call to grow, growing in all different ways. And forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Okay, here's the Aramaic translation. Untangle the knots within us so that we can mend our hearts' connections to each other. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. This is how it translates. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back from our true purpose. Which is what? What is our true purpose? Any guesses? Anybody? Love.
Truth, harmony, peace.
Mm-hmm.
Service.
Mm-hmm. Service, compassionate service. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, and then he says, and so thy kingdom come, thy will be done, and so on. Turns out to be, out of you comes the astonishing fire and the birthing glory, giving light and sound to the cosmos. Isn't that beautiful? And then Amen, and Amen has its own meaning, which has to do with the ideas of faith and trust, and basically saying, I stand firm in believing this truth. So again, that first line, let's go back to the first line again. We did a lot last week with another interpretation, but it's the same message. O birther, Father, Mother of the cosmos, focus your light within me and make it useful. This is about a reminder of our birth as a divine being, whole, perfect, and complete, just as we are. The beautiful beings of light that we are in truth. That we are that one light, individualized, and that we are designed to emulate that one light by being useful, by making our lives useful, and being a giver of life to each other. So again, create your reign of unity now through my fiery heart and willing hand. Help me love beyond my ideals and help me sprout acts of compassion for all. So we express our oneness with, I love this idea of a fiery heart, a heart that's on fire, passion, enthusiasm, zeal, zest for living, right? And with willing hand. This is about reaching out and supporting one another to be a beneficial presence. A willingness to love beyond our ideals. That it's really inviting us to love even beyond what we think our highest ideals are, to go even beyond that, which is what agape love is. And we desire to act with compassion toward all. So what I want to do is talk a little bit more about this idea of compassion. Because when does the desire to act with compassion serve, and when does it turn into enabling? That's the big question that I've been contemplating myself. And I'm reminded of the passage in the Bible that says, with all thy getting, get understanding, which means to get wisdom. So this is talking about a marriage between the heart and the mind, the heart and wisdom, love and wisdom, that we must use both. Because if we just simply go by what we think is love, we can actually end up doing damage in the long run if we don't temper it with wisdom. So compassion is life-giving. It's doing something for someone else that they are not capable of doing for themselves. So standing by someone's side without judgment, being empathetic to another's situation in the form of kind words, a hug, a prayer, or sitting in silence because your presence is a gift to a lonely heart. It's verbally standing up for someone who's unable to stand up for themselves. It's letting someone know they matter. It's love, support, and encouragement. And it always feels good, and it's life-giving. So enabling is actually depleting. It's toxic. It's taking on someone else's burdens when they should be doing it for themselves. It's taking on someone's negative energy even though it's exhausting. It's taking on someone else's troubles in a way that prevents them from learning a life's lesson. So here are some examples. Giving more than your share of money or time so another doesn't have to feel the pressure of getting a job or doing their share. Picking up after children rather than teaching them to pick up after themselves. Giving money to or drinks to an alcoholic. Covering for a coworker's tardiness or just simply not getting their work done by doing that person's work. Supporting someone financially or in other ways who is capable of supporting themselves. So it goes on and on and on. I'm sure you can think of other examples. The bottom line, though, is that compassion is life-giving, and it comes from a place of seeing the divine potential in the other person and believing in them. It really is about believing that someone has, that person has whatever it is within them to thrive as a healthy person, healthy functioning person. While enabling is buying into the helplessness of another person. It's not seeing their divinity. It's seeing them as helpless and that they need your help and they can't survive without you. So again, enabling is toxic not only for the person that's giving, but it's actually toxic ultimately for the person who's receiving, because they're not they're not they're not becoming a healthy, functioning human being, which is what this is all about. So when you enable, you misdirect your creative energy that would be better served by becoming your greatest self. And often that's what I read, and I've been looking a lot online on this, and the field of addiction and codependency. And what happens is that the creative energy that could go towards someone doing their own deep inner work gets directed out to trying to fix everybody else. So again, this doesn't mean that we aren't in compassionate service to one another. Yes, we are. But this is really about taking responsibility for our own inner work and encouraging others to do their deep inner work. I see heads nodding, yeah. Because we acknowledge this. And so love can get confused. And I certainly have done that myself, thinking that I need to fix something for somebody and realizing that ultimately it really doesn't support that other person. So showing compassion then helps someone stand on their own 2 feet, discover their own divinity and their own inner resources. Compassion creates sustainable life change. When you love and respect yourself first and set good boundaries, your actions will always be life-giving and filled with compassion. So the next line then in the Lord's Prayer, untangle the knots within so that we can mend our hearts' simple ties to each other. This, of course, is about forgiveness. And in this teaching, we talk about radical forgiveness, which is always about changing our own perception, our own belief structure about something that just happened, realizing that everything that happens is really for our spiritual growth. And so when something happens, we use forgiveness to release resentment, hurt, and anger, which often are products of enabling. And then it helps us then to show up and return to the state of love that we are, which is a healthy love, which sees the divine in others, which encourages people to stand on their own 2 feet and thrive. Are you with me?
Yeah.
All right. So, is there someone for whom your heart is tangled up in knots at this time? Let's take a moment and contemplate that. And between now and the end of the year, I invite you, and this is a very simple prayer. This is a Buddhist forgiveness prayer that I mentioned before, that helps to undo the pattern within us that creates the anger and the hurt and the resentment. And often it's about giving up enabling and stepping into true love, true compassion. So here's the prayer. And so repeat, if you have someone in mind, here you go. Let's do the first one. And it starts with ourselves. If I have harmed anyone in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through my confusions, I ask their forgiveness. And breathe. Okay. If anyone has harmed me in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through their own confusions, I forgive them. Breathe. And here we go. And if there is a situation I am not ready to forgive, I forgive myself for that. For all the ways I harm myself, negate, doubt, and belittle myself, judge or am unkind to myself,
myself.
Through my own confusions,
Through my own confusions,
I forgive myself.
I forgive myself.
So I invite us now to turn within and meditate on this beautiful prayer that I'm going to put in the first tense now. In first tense, we can make it personal. So if you close your eyes and just make these words your own, I invite you to. Being unified with the one light, birther of the cosmos, I am an inlet and an outlet for the one light. I allow my life to be used for good. I do my part in the creation of unity on earth through my passionate heart and my willingness to do what is mine to do. I intend that I am loving beyond even what I think is ideal. And I intend that I am being compassionate toward all beings. I open my heart to receive spiritual illumination and guidance and other means of support to meet my daily needs, physically and in growth in consciousness. I continually return to loving connection with all beings through the act of forgiveness. I don't let surface appearances keep me from my true purpose, which is being the light of the world. For out of the one life within me comes the astonishing fire, the life-giving glory that gives light and sound to my life and to life everywhere. And I want you to repeat that after me out loud. For out of the one life within me
For out of the one life within me
comes the astonishing fire
comes the astonishing fire
and the life-giving glory
and the life-giving glory
that gives light and sound to my life
that gives light and sound to my life
and to all life everywhere.
and to all life everywhere.
And together we say, and so it is. Amen. Yes.